Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Well, what do we have here? Is this the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix post-race CHINWAG? I think it is, and I think I'm joined by a newly crowned 7-year-old Minton. It is today his birthday. 7 years of Minton, the entirety of this YouTube channel's history, and many more years to come. Hello, mate. How you doing? How you doing, boy? He's good as gold. Been busy day today. Been a lot of mooching about. Hence why this one's a little bit later than the norm for the post-race Singapore. I usually try and go like 4 or 5 hours from race finish. This is more like 8. But never mind. We've got plenty to talk about. We've got plenty to get into. The meat and bones. Welcome to everyone here live on YouTube. Of course, Junior, Henry, Desktop Bodybuilding, Mish, Spark, Josh, Jawad, Dante, Limdo, Mustafa. And the beauty of this is that because I'm going live at 11 p.m. UK time, it's 9 a.m. in Melbourne. All the Aussies out there. There is a certain Australian we will be talking about, don't you worry. And there's always someone there. There's always someone there in the live chat. Doesn't matter what time I go live, there's always at least one of you knocking about. So welcome. Appreciate you all taking the time. Let's talk all about the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix, shall we? Starting with a weekend race review rating, I guess, right? It's always like, I like to reflect on the entire weekend, but of course you have to weigh Sunday above the Friday and the Saturday. What do you think? What did you think out of 10 for this Singapore Grand Prix? Another track that really did highlight and demonstrate the dirty air problem that the FIA has allowed to increasingly encroach on the competitiveness, at least wheel-to-wheel competitiveness of Formula 1. Closer than ever over a lap when you're not worrying so much about traffic. But when you are worrying about traffic, it's a shame. And unless we're going to remove the wings, which maybe that's the solution. We just remove the front and rear wing entirely and cover the wheels somewhat, then dirty air is going to be a factor in this sport, and we just kind of have to hope that the 26 regs will do something to mitigate it. If you had the dirty air of the 2022 cars, but the field spread in performance of the 25 cars, you're laughing. But that's not the way it is. So yeah, what we're saying, numbers-wise, in the live chat, also Minton is absolutely shattered. You've had a very busy day, mate, so I'm going to put him down. But I wanted to at least, start him off early doors in the stream. Look at him. He's like a little racehorse. That's what I think he looks like. You want to go to bed? Right, come there, mate. Off you pop. Go on. Good lads. Good lad. Good lad. Right. Let's have a look at some of these numbers in the live chat. 3, 4, 3, 6, 3... 7, a lot of threes knocking about. Right, okay. Excellent. Let's start a poll then. Race rating out of 10. Also, I just saw there's a new YouTube thing there. I'm going to have a look at that a bit. So, right, let's go 2 or lower. 3, 4, or a 5 or above out of 10. What we saying? If you're here live on YouTube, get in the poll I just posted. Let me know what you think as a general race rating for this one. Again, the track highlighted what F1 has now become more than ever a qualifying formula, which is a shame. It is a shame. It's hyper interesting and exciting on a Saturday, but we lose out on a Sunday ever so slightly. What is this thing on YouTube? So members only live streams. Interesting. Schedule your live stream to switch to members only. I've heard about this. I'm not sure if I'm going to... maybe at some point. I was doing the Patreon thing for a bit, and honestly, I just wasn't putting the time into it, and I felt like I was, just not giving value. I want to feel like I'm giving value. And beyond what I already do, I feel like I'd rather just give you lot as much as I can for free. Or if you want to be a member on YouTube, it's like the lowest that I can charge. It's like £2 a month. And it just helps pay for Minton's dog food and the rest. If you want to support me, you can. But the bulk of what I do will always stay free. Don't you worry about that. Right, what we're saying in the poll, race ran out of 10. 10% of you gone 2 or lower. 38% of you are 3. 36% of you are 4. 15% of you are 5 or above. So you're kind of averaging a 3.5 out of 10. 3.5 out of 10. And yes, a few of you have already been rinsing the TV direction. Daniel B. Race TV direction was rather poor. Finley, race TV director is actually the vote. Oh dear, not good. I've given it a 4. I've given it a 4 out of 10. It had intrigue. The blue flags as well was kind of interesting, where you had obviously the leading pack of George and Max and Lando and Oscar kind of catching the back markers and having to pick their way through. That's kind of interesting. Obviously, we had the first lap shenanigans between the McLaren boys, which we will get onto, which is kind of interesting. But it was a story of kind of DRS trains, which you got Lance Stroll 32, maybe more laps on soft tyres and able to keep cars behind him. Shouldn't be possible. And you had obviously Carlos going for a long one as well. And Carlos managed to get a point, which is kind of crazy. Superb job from Vamos. But yeah, 4 out of 10 for me. As much as I'm very happy for George, because I feel like, this one was long overdue. He'd had a number of stinkers around Marina Bay, particularly in 2023. Obviously, that was a tough one. That was a very, very tough one for old George. But he got it done. Superb job in qualifying. 2 clutch laps. Double pole position for the man from King's Lynn, ahead of Max Verstappen, who, tell you what, maybe he could have put it on pole on Saturday. Yeah, I still think George probably had it, but Max felt like he had a chance. Maybe the McLaren got in his way, maybe it didn't. We'll get into it as we go. And then Lando Norris P3 as well. The papaya who started behind his teammate but finished ahead. Oof. That was a little bit saucy, wasn't it? Right, so race rating 4 out of 10 for me. You lot, I said about 3.5. So we're pretty aligned on that front, okay? Pretty aligned on that front. So yeah, qualifying. George Russell, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, Ollie Behrman, Fernando Alonso. Ollie, great job, by the way. Great job from Ollie Behrman. P17 Ocon, P9 Behrman did a fantastic job in quali. Alonso Q3. Hadjar felt like he had more to give. He was actually really disappointed. That podium's got to his head. What I will say, I think Hadjar's mentality is spot on. Because there was a lot of concerns with Isaac. I meant to say Isaac, but I keep saying Isaac. I don't know. Going into this year, seeing his blow-ups on the radio in junior formulas, and you're a bit concerned. But actually, I feel like as much as he's showing a lot of that emotion, when he's messing up, he's like all over the wheel, like fuming with himself. It does seem to be channeled a lot more, even though it's still very emotional. I don't know. It seems more controlled and targeted in a positive way with Isaac. So, yeah, look, PA, he can't be too unhappy with that, but he was. Then Hulkenberg, Lawson, Sonoda, Bortoletto, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon, Gasly, and then both Williams disqualified for a rear wing, I believe it was rear wing, infringement, the DRS slot gap. It passed Williams' own tests, but failed the FIA's tests. And when we have a qualifying formula and you set up your car, resulting in both cars being disqualified from qualifying, kind of ruins your weekend. The fact that Carlos was able to recover to a P10, superb. Of course, you had a bunch of trains and a lot of strategy mess going on. At one stage, him and Liam Lawson were together. And by the end, they were not. But anyway, we will get on to the race results shortly. Qualifying head-to-head. After 21 of 30 qualifying sessions so far this season, there will be 24 race, 6 sprint qualifyings so far this year. And we have updated figures. Starting Verstappen Tsunoda, of course, the biggest gap on average, has gone slightly up as well, because in Q2, Max put, what did he put? It was 0.7 something, 0.78 on Tsunoda in Q2. It was about half a second in Q1, but then in Q2, that gap always seems to grow between Max. If Yuki can get to Q2, then the gap seems to be bigger between him and Max in Q2 for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe I'm just making that up. Alonso Stroll, 0.332. Russell Antonelli, 275. Leclerc Hamilton, 184. Hadjar Lawson, 154. Gasly Colapinto has come down again because Colapinto outqualified Gasly again. He's kind of making a bit of a habit of this, is Franco. Right, that's 3 in a row now. And 4 in the last 5. Franco has outqualified Pierre. He outqualified him by almost 0.3 of a second this time out, did Franco. And Gasly last and Colapinto third from last before the Williams got disqualified. So that gap's 0.127 now on average over the course of their time as teammates this year anyway. Piastri Norris, 0.089. Bortoletto Hulkenberg, 0.059. Behrman Ocon, 0.038. And then Sainz Albon's the closest gap, 0.017. So essentially, you know, even Piastri Norris, I mean, less than 1/10 of a second is kind of negligible, I would say, really. So you've got the McLaren, the Sauber, the Haas and the Williams. Those partnerships are, for all intents and purposes, pretty equal in qualifying. And that's what we're looking at. For 9 to go. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out over the course of the remainder of the year. Who's going to win the qualifying head-to-heads? These are the real ones. Ignore the head-to-head numbers, right? This is the head-to-head you need to be taking notice of, all right? Absolutely. Come on. You need to make it make sense. Cool. Qualifying head-to-head. Lovely jubbly. Happy days. Excellent. Perfect live podcast to go to sleep to, Wolf. Don't have nightmares. Don't think about the monster under your bed. You know, Fernando Alonso going screaming on the radio. Ooh. Oh, mate, he was on one today, wasn't he, old Fernando on the radio? He was on one. But it was always good fun. Oh, God, love it. Hello, Unchained as well. Good to see you, pal. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Right. Race results then, shall we? Singapore race results. George Russell. A classic George Russell does nothing, wins. One of them, right? We barely saw him all race because he just led from the front and didn't really have much of a challenge. Max wasn't able to find the pace. He was struggling with his setup. He was struggling with the car pulling as well and the downshifts. And he was like, you really don't want that around a street circuit if the car is delivering traction in a way that you're not anticipating, then the walls are right there, right? They're gonna chomp you up. So Max did well to hold on to P2 ahead of Lando Norris, who was ahead of Oscar Piastri. Antonelli had good pace actually during the race. Qualifying was disappointing, but I think Mercedes, in the heat of Singapore, their tyres didn't cook. Too little, too late, Mercedes. Too little, too late. Well, the same could be said for Ferrari. Wow, Ferrari just disappointing. Really disappointing. Charles Leclerc P6. Fernando Alonso P7 ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who finished ahead of Fernando on track, but with his brakes roasted, was kind of cruising around at the end. Was Lewis. Should have really been, P5, right? Was he ahead of Antonelli before the brakes broke? He was, wasn't he? And then Antonelli repassed him. I don't know. I have mild amnesia, clearly. But he did finish ahead of Fernando on track, but then got a penalty for, corner cutting, whatever, at the end. And so that dropped him 5 seconds, which meant that he finished behind Fernando, which was tough. Tough luck for Lewis, that. Because he actually drove a pretty decent race. Slapped the soft tyres on at the end, and it ended up paying dividends. So it all worked out in the end. He didn't work. He hadn't overtaken Kimi yet. No, you're right. You're right. Ollie Behrman, P9. Do want to give big shout out to the Chelmsford boy, Ollie Behrman. Superb job this weekend. Spoiler alert, I'm not giving him banger drive. But he, I don't think, could have done anything better, especially after getting absolutely clattered at the start. A bit of a racing incident, lap 1 shenanigans with Hadjar. Absolutely clattered. Could have ended his race there, but cracked on. P9, love your stuff, love your work, lovely jubbly. As a rookie as well, never driven around here before. So very, very good from Ollie. And then Carlos Sainz, just from pit lane to P10. That's always impressive. Great job. Hadjar, issues with his car, struggling with the power unit. Apparently that issue that they've had before with his car, right? Was it Spa? I'm pretty sure it was Spa, wasn't it? Where Hadjar was losing power down the straight and was just getting overtaken left, right and centre. And then his engineer was like, it's back. It's back. And then Hadjar was like, no. Very dramatic. Very, very dramatic. Yuki had a awful start by his own admission, but recovered okay to P12. Look, when your teammate's finishing second and you're finishing 12th, you can't gas it up that much, right? As much as it's Red Bull, it's still a bad day in the office. Lance Stroll P13 was out on those softs for far too long. Albon P14 couldn't do what Sainz could do. Sainz had the better race, you got to say for sure. But a lot of it as well, the fact that Lawson finished P15. At one point, again, Lawson and Sainz were together. And then you come out and if you're at the wrong side of a train, it can make 6 positions difference, right? Crazy. And what could have been for Sainz, exactly, Zanny, exactly. What could have been for Sainz and for Albon, because that Williams clearly had pace. Colapinto P16, slow. Bortoletto P17, slow. Esteban Ocon P18, slow. Gasly, slow. Hulkenberg, spin. Hulk was actually having a decent race, and then he locked the rears, didn't he? So, bit of dirty air. Shows it doesn't take much for these cars. You can lock up the rears even if it's bone dry, because it was by the end of the race. Obviously, potential for rain at the start. It was raining beforehand, but it kind of dried out pretty quick. Although maybe that played a factor in Lando and Oscar's little coming together. A bit of moisture, perhaps, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Shout out to Alex because he held Liam back so Carlos could overcut him, pal. There you go. Any opportunity to shout out Alex, and I'm taking it. But again, the fact that kind of stuff, which obviously we saw this in Monaco, where you had the mandatory 2-stop, and because it's so impossible to overtake around there, you had people playing that. Singapore is broadly similar in many a way, where it is incredibly difficult to make a pass, especially in these dirty air ground effect cars. There was one driver who made a very, very decent overtake early doors, the old Spaniard. But yeah, all in all, again, not one to remember. Apart from maybe this being the start of things getting a little bit exciting. Wow, actually we could have an exciting title fight now, hopefully. Because Oscar was not happy, was he? He was not happy. Right, so those are the race results from the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. Lovely jubbly, which means the driver standings are as follows. Oscar Piastri continues to lead, but now just by 22 points. Lando dropped that gap by 3 points. 22 still pretty significant. He's still got a decent buffer as Oscar, but he is still the driver ahead. And are we starting to see signs? I think we are, and I think it's only to be expected, because everyone, we talk about the mentality monster that Oscar Piastri is. I'm trying to call... I was going to call him Isaac Piastri, and I just kept thinking Isaac, and I was like, his name's not Isaac, it's Oscar. That's how impressive Isaac Hadjar's been so far this year. For Oscar to not feel it, he's a rookie in his 3rd year. I'm not surprised, and I do think he's feeling it, and I think he was really holding on to that all race. And the mistake in Baku, to let that mistake then result in him making an even bigger mistake in terms of jumping the start and then crashing into the wall. I think it's starting to show. I do think it's starting to show. And this is a really pivotal point where he is wobbling a bit, and this is beside the incident with Lando, because we can talk about that separately, but this is where, you know, the experience of Lando and the experience of Max, of course, should place them at an advantage over Oscar in that point of view. And this is where Oscar really needs the team around him, be that Mark Webber, be that, you know, whoever else is in the team around him, to really like settle him down. Because, yeah, I feel like we're, as much as this is possibly now killed papaya rules, which is how I've thumbnailed this, also Oscar needs to just kind of settle. Okay, you've had a couple of poor weekends. I think not as bad as Baku, of course, this one, but a couple of poor weekends. You need to just reset and just crack on and almost forget about the title and just start driving the way you've been driving for most of the year. But we'll see. Is the part of the wobbling the lack of support, Brian? I mean, again, he will have his own team separate to McLaren. He will, of course, also have Tom Stallard and the rest within McLaren. But yeah, I mean, look, he's a youngster. Well, my video next week, it's actually, it's a little spoiler here, but 7 years ago, Oscar was like, he was kind of middle of the road junior, not lighting up, you know, the results. Like, only 7 years ago. Fernando Alonso was 37 7 years ago. Crazy. If you know, you know. You'll probably be able to work out what next week's video is going to be based on that. But anyway, I digress massively because I'm meant to be talking about the driver standings. So, Max is now 63 points behind Oscar Piastri, which with 6 races to go and 3 sprints. And you look at the next 4 races, which is Austin, Mexico, Brazil, and somewhere else. I forget. It's my job. I shouldn't be able to forget that, but I do. All I know is that for the vast majority of the remaining races this season, Qatar as well, I would say maybe outside of Vegas, even though Max has one in Vegas, and outside of Abu Dhabi as well, I think Qatar, Mexico, Austin, Brazil are all tracks that work for Max, but also I think work for the package that Red Bull have. And it was always asking a lot for Red Bull to deliver a winning car around Singapore, where it's so, the characteristics are so against what that car typically can run in, and the fact that he still managed a P2 is huge from a championship point of view. So those are the ones to keep an eye on. Of course, the rest of the positions don't really matter. Alonso's jumped up to P11 with 36 points on the board now. But other than that, no real changes from a driver's championship point of view. As for teams, well, in the gold at the top, McLaren have finally got it done. They have officially won the Constructors' title, so well done to McLaren. I mean, crazy turnaround given where they were like 3 years ago. 3 years ago in particular. Insane. So, as much as I can and will criticise McLaren's management of their drivers, what you cannot criticise is their ability to produce an unbelievable car. Be that, you know, Rob Marshall, Peter Bodromu, and the rest of the team at McLaren, the thousands, well, hundreds, 1,000 plus at Woking have put that car together. I mean, it's an unbelievable car they've made. And for them to, again, within a regulation cycle, go from the very bottom to the very top is hugely impressive. So, credit to McLaren. It's been by far and away the best car overall so far this year, over the course of the year, and thoroughly deserves the Constructors' title, no question. But then the battle for P2, obviously George getting those 25 points on the board helps big time. So 325 Mercedes, 300 Ferrari, 290 for Red Bull. And unfortunately, I was kind of right in my pre-race prediction that I didn't think Yuki was gonna turn it on this race. It's because I think Singapore's a difficult track. In that Red Bull second seat, you know, you need a track with a bit more. I know Baku is tight with walls as well, but Singapore's a different beast entirely. So I thought it was going to be a difficult weekend for Yuki. And I don't think he's going to score. He's not going to score points that are going to contribute in a meaningful way towards this. So I think, P2 is Mercedes v Ferrari. It's looking Mercedes, isn't it? It's looking Mercedes because Charles was very, very down about the car and the situation post-race. And, of course, Lewis's brakes blew up. So that doesn't help, does it? That doesn't help, does it? Otherwise, no position changes here. Although Aston Martin, 68 points to Racing Bull's 72. So that gap's come down with the points for Fernando Alonso this time out. So only 4 points between Racing Bulls and Aston Martin. Sauber, nothing. Ollie got a couple of points on the ball with his P9. So well done to him. And Carlos got a point for Williams. So, yeah. Aston Martin closed the gap to Racing Bulls. Mercedes extend their lead over Ferrari for P2. That's kind of it. Oh, someone got Foon. You got some lag. I think it's only you, Foon, because no one else has mentioned any lag. But yeah. Anyway, don't worry. I can see a few of you in the live chat are talking about having your little ding dong in the live chat about Oscar versus Lando. We will get onto that. We will get onto that. Don't you worry. But finally, before we have a little chat. I mean, we're just chatting now, aren't we? That's kind of this whole podcast. It's just me chatting to you and to myself. F1 Academy was this weekend. No F2 or F3, but there was F1 Academy. And well done, Leah Block, for winning her very first win in F1 Academy. Daughter of the legendary Ken Block. So well done to her, head of Myverg, and Chloe Chambers, as you can see. And then Myverg won the second race ahead of Dorian Pan. Got a last lap overtake done. Which was pretty clutch. So, yeah, decent race in F1 Academy this weekend. Just caught the highlights. Didn't watch the full thing, but well done, Leah. Well done, Maya. All to play for. All to play for in the Academy that is F1. Right, back to full screen. Back to full screen. Chat, any particular... I mean, most of you are talking about Lando versus Oscar. So you actually know what? Most of you are talking about it here. I'm not gonna hold on to the incident till later in the podcast to try and keep the watch time up. No, I'm going to talk about it right now. Let's talk about it right now, shall we? So, into turn 1, 2, and it would help if I could. I'm not going to faff around getting overlays to try and show you the incident. I'm sure you've seen it. Especially Lando's on board is very easy to find. Oscar's takes a little bit more time, but you can find Oscar's on board online for the incident. So, right, what we're saying. So, Lando gets a slightly better getaway than Oscar, not massively, and kind of gets a nose up the inside. George gets a good getaway. Max is kind of nowhere near and almost closer to the McLarens, if anything. And then you kind of go through turn 1, fine. Lando's kind of got a nose in. Oscar's giving him space. And then you go in kind of a little right bit as you approach turn 2. And Oscar knows Lando's to his left and definitely doesn't hug the kind of long apex of the corner like you typically would. He knows Lando's there and he definitely objectively chooses to, I think squeeze is a strong word, but he could kind of moves over to the left ever so slightly just to tighten the angle for Lando going into that turn 2, which is entitled to do, of course, and there's plenty of room. It's not a tight thing. He's not like pushing Lando there's plenty of room. And then obviously when Max takes the corner, because he's not got a run on George at all, so he takes that corner very normally, in a very typical line that you would take. So slows down on the right, takes the apex as he comes across. And through, probably, because I think that there's no intent there. I think that's pretty clear, right? But through being on a dirty part of the track, obviously it had been raining as well previously. And before any of you, you're just making excuses for Lando. Like these are just facts, okay? These are just objective facts. So he's on the dirty side of the track, probably a bit of moisture down as well. And Lando's obviously racing wheel to wheel with his championship rival, his main championship rival, the guy leading the championship. And he's entitled to do that, completely entitled to do that. Of course he is. And so then they're kind of wheel to wheel, alongside each other. And Lando just kind of goes in a bit too hot, ultimately. He brakes a little bit too late. And possibly slightly put out by Max taking the corner at such a normal line and taking the apex. And yeah, just brakes too late for the grip that's underneath him. Carries that little bit too much speed, kind of washes out. Hits Max, not hard, glances Max, but it's enough to then make him kind of snap. And then he hits Piastri. So like, yes, Lando objectively hits both Verstappen and Piastri. And you look at Piastri's on board, and it is a decent whack. It's enough of a whack to be like, whoa, hang on, there's a wall here. Circa Ocon Perez 2017, I want to say, when they put each other in the wall at Singapore. I can't remember off the top of my head. One of you in the chat will let me know. And yeah, Lando goes through. Now, honestly, like, this kind of move is, I think, in part, the kind of move Lando needs to be pulling more, where it's aggressive. It's lap one, and you know on lap one that there's more lenience in the ruling because things are closer. If you're gonna try an aggressive move and get a bit elbows out, and again, it's a championship fight, and McLaren have already won this constructors. They'd already won it before this Grand Prix, let's be honest, right? That's the time to do it. Did he misjudge it? Yeah. Was it sloppy? Yes, because he could have easily spun out Max. He could have easily put Piastri in the wall. It was one of those where, yes, Oscar's come like in close to hitting Lando. Think Hungary when he locked up. Think Austria when he locked up. But didn't hit Lando, and that's the key difference, right? Lando did hit Max and hit Oscar. Again, Oscar pretty hard here. But it's one of them where ignoring papaya rules and all that kind of stuff, right? Just putting that to one side. And even just looking at these as teammates, but generic teammates who aren't McLaren teammates with Lando, Oscar and all this previous behind it. Like, it's a move that's elbows out. Like, yeah, he's got a little snap and he's tapped Max and he's hit the side of Oscar. But, I mean, I think it's one that the stewards didn't penalise it. They could have, but they didn't because it's lap one. And so I'm not surprised. So I'm not surprised Lando went for the move, and I'm not surprised that the stewards didn't penalise him for it, even though he did cause a collision. And that was part of the overtake on Oscar. That's the kind of stuff that you can get away with on that one. And those are the rules. So you play to the rules. So I didn't have a problem with that. But, of course, with the whole papaya rules context and all of this, we need to be super woo woke with our drivers that it's all fair and there's no slight preference either way. Can I understand why Oscar was not happy? Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course I can. Of course I can. I mean, I can understand why he wouldn't be happy anyway, because someone's passed you and by passing you, they've hit you. But also, it's minor contact and it's lap one. And that's kind of what happens. And you kind of have to accept those ones a lot of the time. But because of all this, when you then reintroduce all of the papaya rule context, like, yeah. And this is why, whenever we've talked about these incidents between the two of them, you have to, if you're going to do this the way McLaren are choosing to do it, it's impossible to be consistent. And this is why when, Lando had the slow pit stop, the 5.9 versus Oscar's 1.4 in Monza, where's the line? This is what we said then, and this is what we're saying. Where is the line? Like, when Lando's car breaks down, why aren't McLaren asking Oscar to retire the car, his car? If it's a 4 second, and I'm not saying they should, I'm putting things out here, right? When Lando's pit stop is 4 seconds longer than Oscar, what if it's 3 seconds longer than Oscar? What if it's 2? What if it's 1.5? What if it's 1 second longer? And that makes the difference. in this instance, you know? At what point do... You can't be consistent with it. It's impossible to be consistent with it because McLaren have chosen this weird middle ground to interfere, okay? Because, look, they will have known for a long time this Constructors' Championship is done, right? We've won it. And as soon as you're in that position, the way I think they should have gone about it is to be like, right, look, lads, Lando, your side of the garage, your strategy, your performance engineer, your pit stops, right? Even though it's the same team doing the pit stops. When Lando comes in, that's your pit crew in that moment. That pit crew is part of you, your team in that moment. You control your own destiny. And then Oscar, your side, your race engineer, your performance engineer, your pit stops, your pit crew when you come in, control your destiny. That is the only way you can actually consistently, without denting the trust of your drivers, which is kind of what they've done here with Oscar. Because again, I think he's entitled to be annoyed about this one, given the previous context. If you're going to be consistent if you're going to claim to be consistent, this arbiter of consistency and fairness, that's the only way you can do it as far as I can see. And when you're like, oh, actually, no, the pit stops don't count towards that, so we're going to give a position back, or, oh, well, Lando's car broke down, but, you know, that's on the team, that's not on Lando. So then surely the logic tracks that you would ask, and again, I think that would be ridiculous to ask Oscar. Obviously it would. But then it's also ridiculous to ask Oscar to give back the position because Lando had a bad pit stop. You know, like... And so we come to this point where, look, I think taking away all papaya rules and, again, all this additional context, do I think the stewards should have penalised Lando and told him to give back the position? No. Do I think McLaren should have told Lando to give Oscar the position? No. But do I understand completely why Oscar felt so begrudged about it? Yeah, of course, because they're trying to be like, oh, fair, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yes, Lando did hit him to make the gain, to claim the position. It wasn't a clean move. I've seen people trying to compare it to Monza. No, that was a clean overtake from Oscar on Lando. Last year, Monza, I'm talking about. That was clean as a whistle, right? And then it was Lando's fault because he was caught by surprise, really, that he lost the rear, and then Charles got through. It's not the same as that. So, look, that's my thoughts and feelings. That's how I see it, all right? We've got a few supers. Thank you, Spark, for your super. McLaren lap 1 wasn't an incident, only whining. And I do think, I think Oscar let it play on his mind a bit too much. But again, I can understand how we've got here. Because he's given up that position in Monza. And then he feels like, hang on a second, like, it's clearly amongst both drivers not clear to where this line is. Because you can't draw that line. Unless you're going to do what I said and just, right, you got McLaren 1 and McLaren A. I'm not going to say 1 and 2 because that implies McLaren 1 and McLaren A, the two teams, and McLaren. Unless you're going to do it that way and give full autonomy and just be like, look, you do what you can with your strategy teams, with your pits, blah, 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 all that. Unless you're going to do... You can't be consistent. You can't be consistent, and you're only going to annoy your drivers, undermine them, make them feel insecure, and make them feel worried, and make them feel that they can't trust the team. Thank you, Tommy, as well, for the super chat. I applaud Lando's aggression, but I think most are just frustrated with the fallout of the preset of these team orders pumpkin spice rules have set. Sorry, I've read that terribly, Tommy. I've absolutely butchered your super chat, but I do understand what you're saying. Pumpkin spice rules. Oh dear, pumpkin spice rules. My goodness, that is. It's just silly. It's just silly, and I hope McLaren have kind of learnt from this, because again, it's the micromanagement approach. They're just they're just winding up both their drivers because they want to try and control it. And the thing is, like, they've had it fortunate in a way this year because they've had such a car advantage for so much of the season. But if Max can have a couple of good races, if he can have a good Austin and a good Mexico, which you wouldn't put it past Max winning both those Grand Prix. And look, McLaren have won the Constructors now, but again, they've won it for a while. So it's just like, you're making a rod for your own back, and you're putting yourselves in a position where you can't win, you know, and they're trying so hard that they're actually making it more difficult for themselves. They don't need to do this. Silly. It's silly. Thank you, Gloomy, as well. Something separate here around Kimi. Kimi Antonelli seems to be out of his mid-season slump. He looks more confident in the car as of late. I'm hyped to keep watching him for years to come. Look, Toto sees something in Kimi for a reason, because he's got a hell of a record 7 years ago. That was his breakout season, actually, 7 years ago. But again, you'll hear more about this shortly next week. Right, what else? Let me have just a little look through the super chat the live chat before we crack on with the rest. What we got? Laughing says, I think Oscar has had an annoying weekend considering his first lap of Q1 due to car off track let him through. Don't really. Music is life. It is all McLaren. Neither of the drivers are at fault. It was nice to see Lando show balls. I mean, look, it was a ballsy move from Lando. I'll give you that. And I think, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see that more from him. And as much as it was clumsy, and he was very lucky to not cause more damage to himself, to Max, to Oscar, he needs to be making those kind of moves if he wants to win this title. So I'm all for it, you know. And I didn't have for a lap one move. Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it, you know. I think if you make that move in the middle of the race and you cause contact, then yeah, fair enough. But like, you get away with that on lap one, and I think he was fortunate again for it not to be more damaging, but he got away with it. And sometimes that's just the way you need to go. You know, you need to play to your outs. Carbon Fire, nothing is fair, especially in F1. Never has been. Doesn't have to be forced to be. It's almost like they're trying to be idealistic at McLaren. You know, they've got this idealistic view of what a championship fight can be. And it's like, you've got they've played ball all season, really, broadly speaking. Like, they've played ball so much more than any other drivers would. And it's just like, even now, it just has to stop. You just got to let them go at it. You just got to let them go at it, you know? Give them equal hardware. And then whatever happens in the race happens. Whether bad pit stops, technical DNFs, they crash into each other. Just let them go at it and don't. This has to stop. This has to stop. But yes, anyway, right. I think that broadly covers my thoughts on the incident, to be honest. Thank you, Daniel, for the super as well. Hi, Tommy. In lights of his 100 million, will Christian Horner return to F1 as a mere hand servant to another team or head honcho of his own team? Cheers. There's been a lot of talk about Christian, hasn't there? Obviously, he's got his payout and he's been linked with Haas. He's been linked with Alpine. He's been linked with starting his own team from scratch. Like, I think whatever Christian does, he will be... he will have skin in the game. That was a nice voice break there. He will have skin in the game. And other than that, I mean, I thought... It sounds from all the reports like he's super keen to get back in ASAP, which I thought he'd take a bit of time off. Because if I was him, that's what I'd be looking to do. Just have a chill, mate. You've been doing this since you were 31. Just relax. But no, he wants straight back in, which, I mean, fair play to him. And he's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of insight. I don't think Alpine would give him the control that he would want. Haas, I mean, Aokamatsu's addressed it and said that Gene Haas wasn't interested. So I guess it's start his own team. 12th team, Christian Horner Racing. You heard it here first. We'll see. I mean, he's got so much to offer, isn't he, Christian? Like, it's so much insight, so much... he's the perfect team principal, really, to kick off when you look at the people available. I know Otmar's got a project going, and Otmar would bring a lot of value as well, and I've got a lot of love for Otmar. But time will tell. Time will tell. Right. Excellent. Let's go back to the graphics and let's reflect on predictions, which mine weren't great. Race winner Lando Norris, no. Banger drive Liam Lawson, hell no. Not after that FP2 and FP3. Disgusting. Come on, Liam, sort it out, son. Clanger drive Yuki, when your teammate's P2 and you're P12. I kind of have to give myself a point for that. Banger team racing Bulls. Banger potential. But then Isaac's car had no power. And credit to the Racing Bulls mechanics for fixing Liam's car twice. But all in all, bosh. And Clanger team Mercedes. Almost need minus points for that because that's a huge stinker. Big L, yes. Zandy, Davids, yeah, you're calling me out there, as you should, so 1 out of 5 for me on my bangers and clangers, and for you, I've given you 2 out of 5. Race winner Oscar, no. Banger drive Franco Colapinto. I mean, I don't think it was a bad drive, but I don't think it's a banger either. Clanger drive Hulkenberg, you can have that. He literally finished last and had his little spin. Banger team Ferrari, you could have minus points for Banger team Ferrari because they were absolutely nowhere. You had a mare with that one. And then Clanger team Sauber, they were indeed terrible. Just kind of no pace, really. I mean, Hulk had some pace, but then spun. So, whatever. Well done. Hope you're happy. You win. Right. But what about the actual bangers and clangers from the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix? Starting with mine, my banger drive this weekend. There were many drivers who could have got this one. Of course, race winner George Russell. 2 pole laps. Just drove the race. Excellent. You know, had a bit of a curse around Singapore. Right, exercised some demons this weekend. Did old Georgie boy, so credit to him for that. Again, Ollie Behrman, Q3 when your teammate's out in Q1 and kind of nowhere as a rookie as well, converting that P9 after contact with Hajar on lap 1. Fernando Alonso, worldy overtake on, who was it? Who is it Alonso overtook on track when he chucked it up the inside? I can't remember, but it was lovely. Terrible 9-second pit stop, still finishes comfortably best of the rest and ahead of Lewis Hamilton with his 5-second penalty as well. So all things considered, I've given it to Alex. I'm joking. I've given it Fernando. I'd love to give it to Alex Albon every weekend, of course, but that's a sentence out of context. But I've given it to Fernando Alonso this time out. So well done, Fernando. Very vamos. Excellent. And he was hype on the radio, which is always funny. The hero of the race. The hero of the race. Give him the hero of the race. Oh, he's got bars, man. You can't doubt Fernando's bars. Unbelievable bars this weekend. Well done, Fernando Alonso. Great points. Quick Aston Martin car underneath him, and even when they messed up his pit stop, he still got big points on the board. Lovely jubbly. So well done, Fernando. You are my banger driver for the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. But what about yours? 1,082 of you voted. Thank you very much for voting if you did. If you didn't see the poll, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tommo, of course. That is the name of the channel. That is my name. And turn on notifications as well. Because I've seen a worrying amount of people in comments be like, I didn't see this go live. Why have I not seen this? Blah, blah, blah. Right. Well, this is YouTube doing me over, right? So notifications, so you see when these go live. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tommo McCluskey, where I typically post these polls as well. Sometimes I forget to post them on Instagram. I usually do. So, if you want to get involved, get on it. Your banger drive this weekend was George Russell. 52% of the vote. Very well deserved. I mean, he couldn't have done any more, so fair enough. 23% of you, Fernando Alonso. 10% of you, Carlos Sainz. Pit lane to point. Fair. And 6% Max Verstappen. So he could have had a shot at pole, maybe. I guess that's a separate chat as well. I do think, and I'm pretty sure I've seen, I could be wrong, I think it was Michael Schumacher who would do this. I'm sure I've seen something talking about Michael Schumacher would do this. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, like a top tier athlete. Because I remember watching something, it's like, they would create almost antagonists. They would create enemies. They would create things to be wound up by. Even if it's pretty innocuous, which it was pretty innocuous, yes. Was Lando's dirty air affecting Max? Do I think it's intentional? No. It's annoying, sure. And did it cost Max his lap? Yeah. But I think the way Max, like, oh, I'm going to remember this, like, you wronged me. I think Max does that to, like, wind himself up a bit, to, like, really get the fire going. That's just my opinion. And I don't think that's a bad strategy, because I'm sure I've heard. Maybe Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan. Yes, it's Michael Jordan. Yes. Thank you, chat. I took it personally. It's Michael. Yes, of course it is. Yes, Michael. It's the Michael Jordan strat of creating enemies to motivate yourself to then boom. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think, I don't know. I think Max is a bit guilty of that. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just a strategy for success. If it's good enough for MJ, it's good enough for MV. That's good. Right, Clanger Drive this weekend. I've gone Liam Lawson. Now, in the race, it was difficult. Obviously, he was on that medium for a long time and didn't really do too much wrong in the race. However, you cannot crash in FP2 and FP3. And given the pace that Hadjar had, and given the engine issue he had, the potential of the racing balls was so much higher than Liam was able to deliver. So for me, I'm taking it big, that FP2 and 3 into account here. Liam should have delivered way more this weekend and caused his team a massive bill and his mechanics way too many hours of work where they should have been chilling in a nice bar in Singapore, getting out the humidity, but instead they were fixing his car twice. So I've given it to Liam Lawson. Sorry, Liam, but you can't be doing that, bro. Especially not in Singapore, man. Come on. So my Clanger Drive's Liam. Your Clanger Drive is Nico Hulkenberg. 29% of the vote. I get it. He was having a good race, and not good race. It was fine. A fine race, not great race actually. Sal was pretty slow, and then obviously he spins on his own, almost causes a safety car. That race needed a safety car. I gotta be that when I saw him spinning, because the camera cut to him as he was backwards going. It needed a safety car because it was just dull, wasn't it? All in all, it was pretty dull. So I get it, but whatever. 17% Sonoda, again valid. 10% Pierre Gasly. He did have a bit of a honker, didn't he? Out qualified by Colapinto, and nothing in the race. The Alpine had no pace, sure, but damn. And 9% Oscar Piastri, which I mean, I get it. Depends how you look at it, I suppose. Depends how you look at it. It's interesting. And actually, you know what was also interesting? So 9% of you is actually 94 votes, Oscar Piastri Clanger. 7% of you, 74 votes, gave Lando Norris Clanger. But he didn't make the top 4. But I just thought that was interesting information. Even though he qualified 5th and finished 3rd. Some of you still gave Lando Clanger. Which, I mean, there's always going to... Unfortunately, and we saw some of these... Lando's quotes when he's talking about... If you've not seen them, you can look them up on Twitter or whatever. Lando talking about Max and... there was a few things he put in there which I'm just like, Lando, you just don't need to say these things because you're just like... It's just going to attract stick. But, I mean... look, listen, I've been putting myself online for years talking about sport, and I get stick all the time, right? And it just happens. It's part of it. But also, sometimes I'm like, Lando, you're not helping yourself, mate. Just stop. Just don't talk. Just stop saying these things, or at least if you're going to say these things, people are going to react, but then just don't. I hope he's not looking at the reaction sometimes, because he's been getting dragged a lot of the weekend. And yeah, I've very much felt sorry for him, I've got to say. The hate is forced. I absolutely agree. But yeah, I'll let you can look it up yourself. I mean, it's nothing that deep, but people just like to blow things out of proportion on the internet. Shock. Right, so anyway, we got different bangers and clangers, which is kind of unusual, actually. We're usually pretty aligned on this, but I mean, George Russell, easy banger, fair enough. Banger team this weekend, I've gone Mercedes, massively outperformed mine and their own expectations, giving George a car that he could qualify on pole for twice, 2 laps good enough for pole in Q3. And Kimi had pace, didn't quite deliver in quali, but he was very close. I mean, he was within... it was a few hundredths of a second off of Oscar in P3, so that could have played a big part and made a big difference to him. But yeah, good pace in the race, just got a little bit caught up. But the Mercedes was very quick this weekend in hot temperatures. Got to give him credit for that. So banger team Mercedes for me, and so as you, so is you. That's fantastic use of the English language, and so have you. That's better. 88% of the vote and 9% of the vote McLaren. No one else got a meaningful vote. Of course, McLaren sewing up the Constructors' World Championship. And again, in this race in isolation, I think, yeah, McLaren didn't really do anything wrong. Like, they didn't have a massive advantage, but Lando was quicker than Max, couldn't get past. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, whatever. I don't think they should have told Lando to give Oscar the position. And the reason Oscar was annoyed wasn't because of that in isolation, it was because of everything that came before this. But on this weekend, fair enough, McLaren banger. I can't give you that. Hazard, I swear to... Why? Every time. It's not 100%. That's not how these things work, okay? That's not how these polls work, people. I know you're saying it to trigger me. You've done it. Well done. Successful. Banger team Mercedes for both of us. And then finally, clanger team, I've actually gone with Williams. Now, did Carlos Sainz get a point? Yes. But I said this earlier. Their car had easy potential for double points. Easy potential for double points. And even though qualifying wasn't amazing, they both got knocked out in Q2. It wasn't bad either. They would have started, what, P12 and 13 or 11 and 12, something like that. So to then get both your cars disqualified when it's a qualifying formula is absolutely unacceptable. And to only get 1 point from this weekend, where they could and should and had the pace to get so much more because of something as innocuous as a bloody rear wing flap gap or whatever it was. Sorry, Williams, clanger, I'm afraid. As for you, 25% if you've gone Alpine. They were terrible, but then is it that out of character? At least they were scrapping with other cars, you know? I think compared to expectations, Williams was a bigger clanger than Alpine. 23% Sauber, they were disappointing, for sure. 18% Ferrari. I actually thought Ferrari would get more of the vote, especially with Lewis's brakes failing him and Charles just having no performance, but there you go. And then 17% of you also believed in Williams. So it was quite a big spread. I mean, look, 25, 23, 18 and 17 for those 4 teams. So, yes, interesting. Very interesting. These are my bangers and clangers. Alonso, Lawson, Mercedes, Williams. Yours, Russell, Hulkenberg, Mercedes, Alpine. Which means these are the totals. If you're interested, this is more interesting at the end of the year when we do the final end of year post-season CHINWAG. You know, that's how that works, right? That's how that works. Boom. All right. Happy days. Excellent. Let's We've been live for over an hour now. Team by team, cover off anything we haven't spoken about already. Sauber, no pace. Hulkenberg spun. Bortoletto didn't really factor in this race at all. And so, yeah, it is what it is. Alpine, I mean, Colapinto again, outqualified Gasly, decent. Otherwise, pretty non-existent in the race. TV direction was struggling. This Grand Prix, it was not up to the standards that we would hope for as a fan base, but it was up to the standards we expect as a fan base because we expect it to be rubbish, and it was. Not much more to say about Alpine, honestly. Ferrari, I tell you what, like we said about this earlier in the year, if this year ends up being a bit of a write-off and they're actually going to go down in the Constructors, right? They almost won the Constructors last year. They're probably going to be third this year, and they changed 95, 99, whatever Fred said going into this year, % of the car, and they have relatively gone backwards by putting all that effort in to get no reward and go backwards. All of that effort they would have put in is effort they weren't putting into their 26 car, and oh my goodness, that's really bad. And as much as I'm fully Team Fred, that was clearly a mistake, I think, to change so much of the car going into this year when they have made no gain. They have made no gain relative to the field. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, of course, but when they made that gamble to change so much of the car going from 24, where they were, again, very competitive. Charles Leclerc was the best driver at the end of the season in terms of most points scored for like the second, third or whatever it was. To be where they are now, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. They might be worse next year, Zanny. It can't get worse, can it? It can. If you don't get that meme, then I thought that was pretty good. That was a pretty good Mick McCarthy. I'll give myself that. It's not looking good, Brev. Exactly, Avkid. It's not looking good, Brev. It can. Oh, Ferrari. What are you like? What are you like, Freebird? Liam, you like that one? Freebird, you like that one? No, you like that one? Good. I'm glad. Haas. I mean, oh yeah, Ocon just struggled in qualifying. Couldn't get the lap together. Ollie was cooking, I tell you. Ollie was doing a very good job. I've been, all in all, very impressed with Ollie this year. You know, Haas is a car that's always been a difficult one to get a read on. It's got those peaks, it's got those troughs, but this weekend he really turned up and, you know, put a decent gap on Esteban in quali and just delivered a very assured, mature drive. What more can I say? Chuffed to see him do well. And I think that, yeah, when the time comes, and I think, you know, Ferrari really stink up the place next year, then we could see Lewis leave at the end of 26. So I hope that's not the case. I hope we get a couple of years at least of Lewis in this new era of Formula One. That also means then we get a little bit more of Ollie Behrman at Haas, because I think he's just what a team like Haas need. But I think when the time comes for Ferrari to want to replace Lewis, or maybe even Charles, if you want to believe these contract rumours, then I think Ollie is putting himself in a very good position to give that team a lot of confidence. So, yes, as you say, Avkid, when Lewis retires, I'm back in Behrman. Me too. Racing Bulls. Yeah, I mean, I got a feel for Hadjar, man, because like P8 in quali, he was super disappointed with that, which is again kind of crazy. But he's been so impressive, so impressive as Hadjar. And Lawson again, just a bad weekend for him. And we come back to this whole conversation, and I'm not even so much. I want to talk more about Hadjar, right? Because clearly Red Bull have a real talent on their hands. And when you look back at, not F2 last year, Hadjar was very good in F2 last year, what we're talking about. I mean, if you look back 3 years ago to Hadjar in F3, when him, Behrman and Martins were fighting for the title, Hadjar was up there on merit, fighting, scrapping, fantastic. The signs were there. He's come in. He's controlling that emotion, that passion that he has. He's constantly... He doesn't put himself down too much, but you can tell he always wants more. I think he's got a fantastic mentality. I think he's really got that mentality that you need to get to the very top. I really feel that from Hadjar. So Red Bull just need to be careful with this asset that they have. And I think that seeing the big team, chew and spit out so many drivers, they need to be very careful. And I hope that Laurent has looked at this and taken everything into account. And I said this before, I say it again. I don't think Hadjar should be in a Red Bull next year, in my opinion. I think we've seen enough from Yuki how good Yuki can be. I think let's give Yuki the 26 Red Bull that isn't a Newey car, is a Vacher car. Max has said it himself. The second driver's not the issue. Of course, they're not. It's the car. The car is going to change fundamentally next year. Keep Hadjar where he is, because you've got such a potential diamond here in Hadjar, and you don't want to preemptively chuck him into that environment and the same thing happen again. I do have belief that Red Bull will have learned from why they've not been able to deliver a car that another driver can drive. Because I say this time and time again, it's not just about Max always beating his teammate. If Max was always beating his teammate, but then the teammate was still beating everyone else, it'd be fine. The problem is that Max is always beating the teammate, and everyone else is also always beating the teammate. Like the other 9 teams, most of them. Literally most of them. It's crazy. So, yeah, I would say that you keep Hadjar in place because he's thriving in this environment. And then you get a lie of the land in 26. Don't rush it. Why rush it? Why rush Lindblad? Why rush Lindblad? He's great. Alex Dunn. Sounds like he's going to go to Red Bull from all of the rumours that we're hearing. Obviously, he's broken tyres with McLaren now. It seems like a Red Bull deal that's what's being talked about. Give Lindblad, Dunn, another F2 season, both of them. Give them a bunch of FP1s. In the Red Bull, you got 2. If they do sign Dunn, you've got 2 quality potential drivers there. Just have them both in F2. They can fight against each other in F2. They can test the cars in F1. See who impresses more. Keep the F1 teams as they are. You don't need to knee-jerk. You don't need to rush these drivers in. That's the way I see it. L take the Wood. I'll take an L take. But yeah, we'll see. That's the way I think it needs to go. But either way, they've produced a fantastic drivable car here, which is even more annoying that Lawson crashed it twice. Again, not good enough, but we'll see. We'll see how they go about things. And yeah, I guess talking of Red Bull, 63 points. I mean, it's a big task with 6 races and 3 sprints to go, but now things are starting to get a little bit tasty at McLaren. That could open a door for Max, but he needs Oscar to have at least a retirement, doesn't he? He needs at least a retirement and a 25-point Max win, like to then really, because what if Max wins a race and Oscar retires, then that gap drops to 38, which is way more like, oh, okay. 38 with 5 races and 2 sprints to go, if that was to happen in Austin. Then we're on to something. But it's still a huge ask. I still think Max kind of needed to win that race. With Oscar finishing 4th, if Max had won, that's huge. But we'll see. We will see. Next we will go at McLaren. I mean, look, Constructors' title winners. Yet there is this tinge of frustration, of infighting, and it's kind of a shame because they've been the master of their own it's not. It's not a. Is it? It is an issue if you damage your legacy. Your not legacy. What terrible word to use. If you damage your standing with your two drivers, especially if you're going to let someone like Alex Dunn go, you know, you're implying that, right, you believe in this lineup for the long term. And yeah, if you're going to, just by overcomplicating things, just keep it simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? That has to be the way it is. And again, that's where hopefully, from an entertainment point of view, Max Verstappen finds a way to join this title fight to make these two squirm, because that's what they need. They need a fire lit up under their rear ends. And I'm not just talking about the drivers. I'm talking about Andreas Stetter and Zach Brown and all, because I want to see this more interesting, more exciting for sure. Williams again, massive L, getting double disqualification in qualifying, but superb job from Carlos. Very, very close in qualifying once again between these two. What was the gap? It was in Q2, 33 thousandths. Alex was ahead of Carlos by, so basically nothing, which is good. Honestly, like, now that Carlos has settled in, Alex is still, you know, pretty consistently like there and thereabouts, and we saw, like, I'm proud of how Alex is holding himself against a driver of the caliber of Carlos Sainz. Very chuffed. But yeah, superb drive from Vamos, absolutely. Mercedes, well done. You proved us all wrong. You proved yourselves wrong. And they'll be slow in Vegas now, won't they? Everyone's like, oh, yep, George's going to win in Vegas because it's cold. They'll be terrible in Vegas. Watch this space. Watch this space. But yeah, good to see Antonelli have a good drive. Good to see George exercise some demons. And then Aston Martin, actually quick. If they hadn't had that 9-second pit stop, wow. Fernando was absolutely cooking. Lance Stroll was not cooking his soft tyres. He was on them for ages. So credit to him for making that pretty terrible strategy actually kind of not be so bad. So well done, Aston. There's clearly a quick race car in there. Sometimes they're pretty yo-yo actually, aren't they? Aston are pretty yo-yo because they were comfortably best of the rest this weekend. I mean, the Williams might have been quicker, but we'll never know because they were at the back. Apart from when Sainz made his way through, but it took too long. That's the difference. Oh yeah, when Stroll was like, "These mediums feel like 100 laps old." That the Aston boys were cooking on the radio. Can't lie. But yeah, there we have it. That's pretty much everything covered. I think make sure there's no super chats that I've missed out. What we got? Thank you. Oh, sorry, I can't read your name, but thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Hey, what do you think of F1 TV direction? Was not able to see most of Alonso's overtakes and his hunt for LM. His hunt for LM? Do you mean LH? Lewis Hamilton? You must mean LH, because yeah, the fact that they were just showing, like, look, it's one of them jobs where it's like, it's like being a referee. It's like being a steward. It's a thankless task. When you get it right, you won't get the credit, and then when you get it wrong, everyone's on you. But frustrating. You would think that they would, because they've done it before, where they'll have like a little split screen. Like, imagine you had a little split screen of Alonso chasing down Lewis at the end, and like the amount of quality overtakes that were missed. And there weren't many overtakes, but the ones we got, even that overtake that Alonso did when he chucked it up the inside of someone after going over the bridge, we only saw the onboard, at least I only saw the onboard, maybe I missed it, I only saw the onboard from Fernando's visor cam, which you can barely see anything anyway. Like, the visor cam's cool and all, but it doesn't really show the overtake in its full quality. It's a cool insight to have, but come on. So yeah, I agree. It stunk this weekend. But also, do I think I'll do a better job? Probably not, because I just lose focus. So, fair. Yeah, camera operators do a faultless task. Good shout, Avkid. It's the shoddy director. Yeah. Not enough driver girlfriends. Can I? My God. What? Like, why? I don't need to see the driver's girlfriends constantly. Like, it just... Why? I don't... It just feels like it's happening a lot. And I'm just like, you know, cutting away to girlfriends or families or all that. I'm just like, maybe if they've won the race and they're jumping around, but not when they're just standing there, just going like, and they see themselves in the camera that, why? Show them when they've crossed the finish line and they're jumping around celebrating. Yeah, cool, fine. Cut to them for like a couple of seconds. I'm happy with that. But just randomly in the race, I don't get it. I don't get it. I do not get it. Anything else, chat? Anything else we haven't covered, spoken about? We've been live for an hour, 17 minutes. It's 13 minutes past midnight in the UK. So it is no longer Minton's birthday, which is sad. It's very sad. Bathurst week, yes, Mish. Bathurst week. If you're looking for some motorsport to watch, then give Bathurst a go. Especially qualifying. Qualifying is well good. Love it. The main race, you want to try and watch the whole thing if you can. It's a long race, but if you've got the time zone for it, and there's a good chance you're Australian if you're watching, because I am live at a very convenient time for all my Aussies out there. So we will see. We will see about that, but that should be fun. That should be fun. Who do you think will be driving for Red Bull and Mercedes next season? I think they should keep both lineups the same. That's what I think. Critical hit. Not a very exciting opinion to have, but that's what I think. Yeah, I guess now is the time where I need to think about the video I want to do tomorrow, because I do want to do a video tomorrow. I'm away from Tuesday till Saturday, and I've already got a video almost completed that I'm going to put live maybe on Wednesday or Thursday. But I want to do a video, a post-race video. Now, of course, the Lando Oscar subject is the most, feels like the most no-brainer one to go to. But does anyone else have any other suggestions as like a post-Singapore race? Maybe let me know in the comments down below. Because I've not really... I just kind of want a video for I guess technically today, where I can just kind of spitball it, chuck some graphics on it. Fairly simple, fairly to the point, just giving my opinion on something. Is there... I don't know. The whole Lando Oscar thing, like... I feel like I've already said my piece on that, but Russell without a contract, maybe Russell could be the Minton birthday vlog. Ferrari car issues, Gasly deserves a better car. That's true. But maybe a little Franco thing, actually, because, again, Franco's out-qualified Gasly 4 in 5. And let's do something here. So, if I can do, what's Gasly's, the Franco Gasly average in the last like 5 Grand Prix? And let me do a little bit of maths on my phone. So feel free to go and listen to something else if you're just wanted to. Just while we're here, just on the old calculator on my phone. Right, so 0.091 take away 0.210 plus 0.111 plus 0.36 plus 0.279, and then divide that by 5. So in the last 5 qualifying, Colapinto has out-qualified Gasly by an average of 0.126 of a second in the last 5. That's kind of a bit more interesting to me than like talking about Lando Oscar. Oh, they had a bit of a crash, but I don't think Lando should have given back the position anyway. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. Why something around Franco Colapinto? I think that's what I'm thinking. Let's do it. Let's do a little Franco thing, shall we? Thank you, Hazza, as well, for the super chat. Appreciate it, Hazza. Thank you. In regards to Madrid next year, why not use Motorland Aragon? Because money, and they want a track in Spain. Banging track, and people would say it's in the middle of nowhere, but so is Bahrain. Yeah, I mean, because it is a financially motivated decision by, I guess, the tourist board of Madrid, and also probably to get one over on Barcelona, because obviously there's that rivalry there between the two cities. That's why. That's why they've not Hazard. That's the answer. Money, as that is always the answer to these questions. We'll give Madrid a go, but yeah, I would much prefer to see it go to a purpose-built racetrack. But of course I would. But it's just not the way the sport seems to be going, does it? But yes, anyway, right. I am going to wrap this up after an hour 21 minutes. Thank you all for taking the time. Thank you, Dawood, Avkid, Julio, Simon, Indrek, Vincent, Daniel, Avkid, Viole. I will be doing a Franco video tomorrow. I've decided that right now. Evenfleur, David, Simon, Hazza, DH, Kappa, Thomas, Yard Animal, Freebird, No, Hazza, Patrick, Jerome, PJ, NK McFrin, Nick McFarlane. There you go. Thank you, NK McFrin, for the law. It's Nick McFarlane, like Seth MacFarlane, who wrote Family Guy, right? Mish, thank you. Awkward M&A, Xavier, Priest, Julio. Appreciate you all for taking the time, whether you're here live, whether you're here after the fact. Give me your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Franco video coming later today, technically, but I need to go and get a kip, and then I also need to finish the video, but whatever. I don't need to tell you all about everything all the time, because I'm not that interesting. Either way, thank you for watching. No race next weekend, but then Austin, which should be fun. So, we're done. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.